walking across the street, and by the time I get to the other side of the street, the cops are like, "Hey, where are you going?" And that's when I, fight or flight, and I'm like, "Fuck this," and start booking it, and I wind up falling into some thorns somehow, and it like tore up all my legs and my arms and shit. And they were like, "Why were you running?"
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Sober Strong apparel isn't just lifestyle wear, it's battle gear. We rep sobriety like a badge of honor, and every piece you throw on says you're part of the crew that doesn't back down. Every order fuels recovery with 10% donated to treatment facilities. Hit SoberStrongApparel.com and use code ROCKBOTTOM at checkout for 10% off. Stay sober, stay true, rep the crew.
All right, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here with my guest today, Amanda. Amanda, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So this is a recovery podcast, so we discussed a little bit about your background in recovery, but first we'd like to kind of know where you're from and what your sober date is and where you're at right now.
So, I was from Virginia, but I'm in Pennsylvania right now because I have family up here. But I don't remember my recovery date, but I know I have 5 months and what, like 7 days. So I'll be 6 months on the 10th.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Wait, no, why did I say 5 months, 7 days? I can't count apparently. It's gonna be 6 months on the 10th.
Okay. Well, that's awesome, though. Congratulations. The first 6 months are very tough for everyone, I think. So, especially the first 3. But once you get to 6 months, I know from my experience, things start to get a little bit more smooth sailing after that. So,
Yeah, so far everything's been doing pretty good. I went to rehab, kind of started off, so now I'm in a recovery house, and it helps a lot being around people who are doing the same thing that you are.
exactly. I learned the same thing when I went to treatment. I tried to avoid treatment for like a solid 10 years when I was trying to quit drinking altogether. And finally, when I went there, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm with a bunch of people that get it, So that have stories as bad as mine, or if not worse, or, it was just nice to not feel alone.
Yeah, I
Sure.
agree.
So, like, what was your drink or drug of choice?
So it started with alcohol. First love was vodka, and then I went to uh whiskey, and then I went to red wine, and then I went to white wine because it didn't stain my lips, so it didn't give me away. And then and somewhere in there, cocaine, and then meth towards the end.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of started, can you take us back to kind of when drinking started, what your childhood was like? You can discuss anything you're comfortable with and kind of what led to drinking in the first place.
Yeah, so my childhood, it wasn't terrible. Like, we had a house, we had food, we had everything we needed. I had my mom and my dad. And my dad was in the Navy though, so he was gone a lot. They would do deployments, so sometimes he'd be gone at months at a time. And so then it would be me, and I'm the oldest, it's me and my brother and my sister, and we'd be with my mother, who is, in a nice way to put it, mentally unstable. Um, that made things very chaotic, and most of the time I wound up having to be mom, cook meals, and keep the kids entertained, and whatever. But since I was also the oldest, I didn't really, when I got to a certain point, I didn't really put up with her bullshit anymore, and she didn't like that. Telling her that what she's doing isn't right, the way she's acting isn't right. She would be verbally abusive and yell and stuff like that. But then when I hit like my teen years, about, I don't know, like 13, she started getting physically abusive too. mostly just towards me because I'd be running my mouth, and for her, that was a good enough reason to put her hands on me.
So you're
That
old enough to stand
actually
up for yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and, she didn't like that, and the reason I had my mouth in the first place is because of her, so it was really her fault.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, yeah, so, all of that kind of started everything I think that led me to my addictions. It was interesting. She accused me of doing drugs like smoking marijuana and drinking and stuff. And the funny part was is that I didn't touch any of that stuff and hadn't seen any of it before in my life. But she would like accuse me in front of my dad and stuff like, Barry, look, she's high. Look at her eyes. And I would just sit there and I would laugh straight in her face because I knew she was lying, and that would just piss her off even more. So it would just give me in even more trouble. So with my attitude and not tolerating her attitude, it wound up being a very, explosive living environment. So at some point, she talked to my dad and convinced him to have me get sent away to a private Christian school for troubled teens. Um, so
Kind of like a boarding school or something.
yeah, basically, she went in my room one day and she went through everything in my room and she took all my papers and stuff, like, notes, we used to pass notes in class. Like, I used to keep all that crap and stuff like that. And I had one time I had taken some little mini liquor bottles. They used to have a little stash, right? And I had tried one or two, and that was it. And I was like, ew, that's fucking gross. But if I put it back, they're gonna notice that I took it in the first place. So I just, kept them stashed in my room. So she found like some crazy notes and that kind of stuff, and she wound up taking all this to my therapist at the time, and she confronted me with all of it. She was like, I just want to preface before we do this that, if you try to hurt me or any of your siblings, then we're gonna call the cops. And right out gate, I knew that, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And then she whipped out my laptop, all my notes, and all that stuff, basically her evidence or her proof or whatever. And I wasn't having it, and I just got overwhelmed and I was like, fuck this. And I left and I walked to my school. And then the cops came and wound up bringing me home. And then that's when they wound up shipping me off to school. So we were in Florida and they shipped me off to Wisconsin.
Okay. So all the way to like the Midwest, and then how long were you over there? How many years?
I was there for about a year, and then the school wound up moving down to Tampa, Florida, because they found out that you could have the school open year round. And they didn't have to send us home over, like winter break and stuff for a few months or whatever, or summer, I mean. So then they figured that kids seemed to get worse when they would go home. So they're like, let's move to Florida so we can keep them all the time.
Yeah.
So I moved down there and I was the only one there on the girls' side for a long time. And then some new girls came in and I was trying to be honest with one of them. And, I was just telling her what different people were like and stuff. And one of the teachers was a bitch. And I was like, this teacher's a bitch. Watch out. And she winds up having, like her little mental breakdown because she can't handle being in the new place in the middle of nowhere. Like, we had to wear red polo shirts with like these ugly ass blue, like, cat pant things, and you couldn't wear a white t-shirt underneath unless you were like a level 2, like, and you came in on restriction, like all this, very overwhelming stuff for somebody that doesn't know anything about it.
And you like couldn't get privileges unless you had good behavior or something, kind of like jail or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Do you feel like that structure was good for you? Do you think it was necessary, or do you think it was just mainly frustrating you at the time?
I think that it mostly frustrated me because, like, most of the problems that I had were because of my mother. Like, and the main reasons I was sent there were bullshit reasons,
Yeah.
like, oh, she's drinking, oh, she's doing this, so, oh, here's the proof, and it's just like, it was like getting sent to jail for a crime you didn't do kind of thing is
And
what it
it's
felt
like,
like.
and then she's not really taking accountability for her actions. She's just kind of like getting rid of you, kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it. Yeah. I had some back and forth with my dad growing up, kind of a similar scenario. So I just know that he didn't threaten to send me off to boarding school or anything like that, but I just know it was kind of rough at home for a while during those same years, you know? Okay, so like when you went off to boarding school, you got back, like, did you feel like you picked anything up from like being out there, that private school? Like you came back with knowledge? Did you come back better with behavior that made your mother more happy, or was she still kind of the same?
Well, kind of where I was going with the telling the story about the girl that I was telling her stuff about, she wound up having a freak out and tried to leave, and that's a no-no. You're not allowed to leave. And they wound up I was on level 2 finally. It's RO. They wanted to put me on restriction because she told them that I said that she was a bitch. The teacher was a bitch. And so while we're walking, while they're, deciding our fate and stuff. We're literally in the middle of nowhere, Tampa, like just orange groves and shit. And I said, fuck it. And I ran. I just ran like beefy. I didn't have nothing but the clothes on my back. And that was it. And I wound up I knew which way town was, so I was like, I'm not going that way because that's really gonna look for me. And I wound up going through orange groves and I was walking through the tree line. I was like, I want to stay close enough to the road where I can hear, but I don't want to like, lose it kind of thing. And I wound up grabbing a bunch of oranges in the orange grove for me to eat because I didn't have any food, right?
It's like you
And
escaped from prison. Hopefully
yes,
you weren't
yes.
wearing a jumpsuit though, so that's good.
No, but I did have a bright red polo that said Calvary Academy on it, so I buried that motherfucker in the orange grove and just had my white t-shirt instead. But I was walking away from, like I said, town, and it wound up getting dark and started raining, so I wound up walking on the side of the road on the highway, and some guys pulled up and they picked me up. And by this time, I already had a story in my mind, like a fake name. My name is Allison McBride, like I
Good
had a
fake name.
story. I was like, my boyfriend and I got in a fight, and he dropped me off out here on the side of the road, all this bullshit. And they wound up picking me up, and they were like, "Well, we're glad we grabbed you because the way you're going is just all coal mines, and
Uh,
there's nothing out there, just gators and all types of shit because we're in Florida." They wound up taking me back to their place. I cut my hair. They ordered me pizza. They washed my clothes because I was soaking wet head to toe. And they wound up actually giving me money for a bus ticket. So they dropped me off at the Greyhound station the next day before they went to work. So it was still dark. And when I got dropped off there, the guy at the bus station noticed me out there and he was like, the buses aren't coming for a few hours. And I was like, yeah, but I don't anywhere to go. And I told him, my fake story, whatever. So he brought me inside and he wound up feeding me some McDonald's for breakfast. He had like this little bed in there, so he let me sleep in there. He had a lost and found. He let me dig through there and grab some random shit. So I grabbed like a backpack and some other random stuff. And I wound up making my way to Milton, Florida. And I almost got all the way there until some kid on the bus wound up changing my mind, and I wound up telling the bus driver, and they called the cops, and my parents came to pick me up wherever the hell I was at. So they dropped me at another house kind of like that, basically, just in
yeah.
the area I was in. Funny thing is that there was a real Allison McBride, and the police thought I was like you know like, what's the word, it's not cohorts, cahoots, in cahoots with her, they thought
Yeah.
I was, like, in on something with her. I was like, "I don't know who that chick is. I have n I was like, "I have no idea who that chick is. It's just a fake name I made up?"
Yeah.
So, that kinda ended that whole saga, and my parents brought me back, and so that's kind of
Wow.
where that all wound up going.
Dude, I can only imagine what it looked like having to just be booking down the side of the road and somebody finds you. Like when I was in treatment, I remember I used to jog back and forth every day because you couldn't go onto the girls' side. You couldn't leave the property. So I'd jog just back and forth. And all of a sudden, all the staff runs out and says, "We've got a runner, catch him." I'm like, what the heck? No, I'm just on my jog, just being healthy.
Oh my
But,
gosh.
but so after that, you went to another house. You said?
Well, no, they just put me there temporarily for, the night or whatever until my parents could come and grab me. But after they picked me up, I got back home, and not too long after that, my parents wound up getting divorced. So, then my mom, apparently she was talking to some guy at the time, and so she moved up to Virginia in Lorton to be with him and took me and my brother and sister with her. My dad went to Norfolk, Virginia, which is, where the world's largest amphibious base is. So, of course, the Navy's going to throw him there.
Yeah.
But in that way, he could be closer to us, so
And then,
that
yeah, I can relate to that part about your mom meeting, a new boyfriend and moving her kids with them and stuff. That happened to me a lot growing up, and it always made it difficult for me to like settle in my adult life and stuff. Just always constantly wanting to move around and stuff. So it does affect you a lot as a kid. You don't realize at the time,
definitely.
but yeah. So when you got a little bit older, when did you kind of start to see drinking starting to become a problem?
The drinking started in Lorton when I was with my mom, but it was just here and there for fun with my best friend. Like her parents would let her drink, so like every once in a while I would drink, but it didn't become a problem until I moved to Norfolk with my dad and my little brother. And I think partially that was because I finally felt settled down in Lorton, and my little brother wanted to go live with my dad. And my mom was like, that's not happening unless one of your sisters goes with you. And my little sister was like, her angel. So I knew she wasn't gonna go. There was no way. And I was like, you know what? I've already moved enough in my life. Fuck it. What's one more gonna do? Even though I didn't want to, because I knew what it was like to be without my dad. And I didn't want my little brother to have to do that. So I decided to go and move with my little brother to Norfolk. And that was my first senior year in high school. And that's when I think I started using drinking to like numb the feelings and deal with my anger and stuff like that.
Okay. So did it so it started off kind of just social and then it became kind of like an everyday thing, or was it all kind of party related and for fun with people?
No, it wasn't even like partying like with my friend, and we were literally, it was just me and my best friend at her parents' house, and it would just be random here and there. It's not like we'd get a bottle and get drunk or anything like that. It's just a drink or two here and there. It wasn't really like a priority in my life at all. But I think that kind of planted the seed, how they say, like
Yeah.
once you get the taste.
Yeah.
And once I realized that it gives you kind of like a good type of feeling, and since I was feeling so shit, I was like, you know what? Let's do it.
Yeah. When did it start to be like when you said let's do it, how did it escalate from like a couple here and there to where you're like, "Oh crap, this is becoming a problem. I'm getting shit faced."
So I think at first I was like drinking some wine here and there, but then it quickly wound up escalating to like I missed the bus for school. I have to walk to school. So I fill a Ziploc bag full of vodka and I drink it on my way to school, get shit faced while I'm at school, and try to do art class. And they catch me wasted as fuck at school. So it once I started kinda just straight off to the races.
Wow. Did you get any trouble at school for drinking? Like
Just that one time with the vodka when they did catch me, it was, funny because they were literally these itty bitty squares, and they want you to color each individual color, imagine that shit, drunk as fuck off of vodka, just it was a hot mess, and they could just tell, so, yeah, I got in trouble for that, but I wasn't drinking every day yet, but it was definitely when I did drink, it was a significant amount,
And
for
you
sure.
think you're kind of trying to block out memories from childhood or numbing something at the time, or just trying to just have fun, get through the day? What were you thinking?
I think it was, like, both. It was definitely more to run away from my feelings, but at the same time, since I did know that it made me feel good, I was like, I wasn't going to parties or anything though. Like I wasn't a party person at that time in my life. It was more of a I was by myself and lonely and miserable, so I used it as a way to cope.
Oh, okay. And how were like your friendships at the time? Were they mostly with people that drank too, or were they aware of it? Did you have drinking buddies, or were you kind of doing your own thing?
I was really drinking by myself. Most of my friends at the time, my daughter's fathers, who I wound up getting together with him there, and they were a bunch of stoners. So that's when I really got into smoking weed and stuff like that. But I don't really remember drinking really being like a thing for everybody else per se. At least not whenever we were hanging out and stuff.
Okay. So that's how you met your
My daughter's
boyfriend or
father.
daughter's father. Yeah, and that was in high school.
My
Okay.
first senior year.
Okay. So when did it start to kind of carry into, say, I really have a problem? Like, were you becoming reliant on it, like waking up and feeling withdrawal symptoms or anything like that, or what was happening?
No, I've never had that point in my life, even though there was a point where I was drinking almost all day, every day. I never really had the withdrawal parts of it that went with it, but I definitely had, the cravings where it's like, I want to drink, and all I want to do is drink, and I want to do it right now. Like, it was never like a physical thing where I had to drink because I felt like shit. I mean, that never really crossed my mind, at least anyways. Like, oh, I feel like shit because I need a drink. It was just something that I would do when I felt like crap. So,
Yeah. Okay. So when did say you started smoking weed a little bit, and yeah, it sounds like a similar timeline to me, just drinking casually and then starting to use other drugs because alcohol is kind of I only drank a few times in high school, but weed was more of my gateway. That was my first thing. So like when did it turn into, say, hard drugs when you got out of high school and everything?
yeah, that was when I was out of high school. That was after I had my daughter. That wasn't until when she was like 2 or 3 when shortly after I kicked her dad out of the house and broke up with him because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. He was, lying, going and getting drunk with friends and family and stuff like that. Or not family. He was getting drunk with friends and stuff when he was supposed to be, making moves. One time I got sick and he couldn't come get me because he was drunk and he didn't tell me that that's what he was doing. And so I wound up having to walk home from the hospital in the rain with nothing but the clothes I had on. It took me like 2 hours to get home. And by the time I got home, I had decided that he needed to fucking go. Because all I could think about was if it was my daughter that was sick and she had to go, I would have had my parents sitting with her in the hospital, found him in his car, and killed him right where it was. And that's exactly what it would have happened. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna play these games because
Yeah.
it's not okay. But
So
after I kicked him out, that's when it kind of really shit really hit the fan.
okay. So how if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
33.
So how long do you think your drinking career lasted, and like what kind of played a role into you quitting? Like what was your last 24 hours of drinking like? Like did some bad dramatic things happen that led to you quitting?
Okay. Hold on. Try repeating that one more time. You put a lot of questions all
Oh,
together, and
sorry.
I lost track of the first ones you said.
Oh,
What
no
was the
worries.
first few?
So just in all your years of drinking, did you try to quit multiple times, and like what led to you quitting altogether recently?
So yeah, I kept trying to quit on my own. I couldn't probably even count how many times, even if I wanted to, but it wouldn't last very long because, I didn't have the support I needed to be able to do it or the knowledge, like I didn't know about AA or rehabs or anything like that. That wasn't a decision that was made until I was up here in Pennsylvania. Um, and that was a trigger from something else. When I was in Virginia, I was with my ex, not my daughter's father, but my ex. And I found out he was cheating on me again. And so I packed up my shit and just left on the fly and came and moved up with my dad in Pennsylvania. So I dropped the meth cold turkey when I moved up here because I didn't have anything. And but alcohol's everywhere, and then it's easy to get everywhere. So I would go like a few weeks, and then it would be a few days, and it'd be first it was the wine, and then, like, there's bars in walking distance, and I don't know people, and, when you're a drinker and you wanna get social sometimes, so you go to a bar, and that led to the instance that took me to rehab. So I got really drunk one night and I woke up in a guy's truck and we were driving somewhere. I had no idea where we were going. I remembered the dude because I met him at the bar, but I didn't know him like that. It was the first
Yeah.
time I ever met him. And I wound up finding out that he was taking me to Philadelphia, and I'm in Newtown, Pennsylvania. So that's like I don't know. I think they says like a half hour away, maybe a little farther. But I was scared. I'd never had anything like that happen before. So somehow I wound up getting out of the car, ran into the bar. I asked the people there for help. I was crying. I was like, I don't know this guy. I don't know where I'm going. Da da da. The guy comes out, tries to get me to get back in the car with him. He winds up starting fighting with one of the bar patrons. So then they call the cops. And then while I'm sitting there on the curb smoking a cigarette, cops haven't talked to me at all. They're sitting there talking to both parties, the people from the bar and the dude, and I hear them laughing all of a sudden, and I get triggered. I'm like, fuck this shit. This is not funny, This is not a joke. Like, I'm drunk, yes, but this dude's taking me somewhere that I have no idea where the fuck I'm going.
Yeah.
So I was
Frightening.
like, fuck this. And I started walking across the street, because I'm still drunk, obviously. I started walking across the street. And by the time I get to the other side of the street, the cops are like, hey, where are you going? And that's when I, fight or flight. And I'm like, fuck this, and start booking it. And I wound up falling into some thorns somehow. And it like tore up all my legs and my arms and shit. And they were like, why were you running? And I was like, because I'm done with this. This is some bullshit. Fuck this shit. I was like, y'all taking this like this is a joke. This is not a fucking joke. So they wound up taking me back to my parents, and they had called them and stuff. So they were waiting outside for me. The sun was coming up, I'm hella disappointed in myself that all that shit went down and whatever. And I'm still really pissed that people don't believe me what the fuck's going on and all this other stuff. I wind up crying for a few hours, go to sleep, and then when I wake up, I'm like, I need to go to rehab.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is. Yeah. So it's like just the whole waking up disoriented with strangers, not knowing where you're going. It all is just kind of like a wake up call. Like, I've taken this drinking too far.
Yes, yes. I mean, I've had other bad experience. There's only like one other bad one that happened like that where I was in a club and I wound up getting really drunk and I woke up in a bathroom and I could tell that something had happened to me, physically, but I never told anybody about that or anything, and I never really did anything about it cuz I didn't remember it. Um, that's the only other time that anything like that really happened to me that I could remember.
Yeah. How long ago was that? You don't have to go into detail, but
I mean, that was a few years. A few years ago.
oh, okay. So there's a couple instances that you consider, but like that last one that you described, waking up in that truck or whatever, was like definitely your rock bottom moment you'd feel that where you're just like, I need to do something about this.
Yeah, because he could have been like a serial killer or something, like he could have been taking me to, or a sex trafficker, or who fucking knows? He could have been taking me to his house to, rape me or whatever. Like,
So at least,
I was like, this could have been really fucking bad. Like, God woke me up. It had to be him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it couldn't have
yeah.
been anybody else because I was blackout drunk. Like,
Same.
I didn't remember anything, how I got in the truck or any of that. And when I looked at my bank statement, actually, I wound up going to another bar after the bar that I remember meeting the dude at, and I didn't even remember going there.
Jeez. Okay.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
So at least you had a conscious enough mind to at least make that decision, be aware your surroundings were a little frightening at the time and you got out of it at least. So even while you were intoxicated. So
Thankfully.
did being intoxicated ever get you into any legal trouble, like as far as like DUIs or anything like that, or how'd that?
Yeah, actually, I did get a DUI and I was pissed about it because it was one, the most sober time I had ever been drinking and driving. And I was like, where were you guys when I was actually drunk fucking up my car? I couldn't tell you how many times I woke up, ran outside first to see if my car was there and second to see if it was in one piece. Like
Yeah.
I've gone and checked it, there'd be side view mirrors missing, or like one time the side of my car looked like a tin can, like a can opener tried to fucking cut through it. Like I couldn't tell you how many times I fucked up my car, drove home blackout, fucking drunk, and I was like, "Where were you guys when I needed you? Like I could have actually killed somebody or something, and I wouldn't have even known." And they grabbed me one night. Well, it was the morning actually, probably like 5 in the morning or something, and I was like, "I wanna go home." Even though I was literally right down the road from my house, my friend was like, "No, you should stay, just sleep it off or whatever." I was like, "No, I'm good," like, "This is the most sober drunk I've ever been to drive home. I got this." And my dumb ass brought crackers with me or something for a snack, right? And I'm like, "Oh, I'm starving." So I go to reach for it, and that's what fucks up my driving
Yeah.
to, like, swerve or whatever, and he fucking catches me. I'm literally you can see the entrance to my neighborhood. I'm, like, right there, and he fucking got me, you
Do you
know?
remember what you blew?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's similar to what happened to me. I mean, I gotten away with so many times drinking and driving and messing up my car and not knowing where I even parked the car, like going out and checking if I had it. But like the one time I got caught, my one DUI, I was literally 3 blocks from home and I could see my place from where they pulled me over. And I'm like, really, of all times to pull me over, this is the time, you know? It's like, and it
Yep.
was my day before my birthday. And I was like, great. And so going to jail.
Oh,
Yeah, but I blew like a .34, so I was definitely intoxicated. I just thought, instead of walking home, it'd be fine just to drive a few blocks, but whatever.
yeah, right?
But learned from it. So did you, I don't know how long ago that was, but did that keep you stopping drinking for a while when you got the DUI?
Definitely not.
No, yeah, same here. I drank the second I got out of jail. I went into Mini Mart and had somebody pick me up at the Mini Mart so I could have a few drinks. So yeah, it's crazy that we don't learn in those serious situations, but then something random happens and we're just like it clicks.
I
But
even had the alkalock system and everything on my car, and that still didn't stop me.
yeah, no,
That's when I started counting drinks, when you learn how long does it take for your body to process a drink? An hour for a standard size drink or, whatever. I was like, okay, I got this. So I would start counting the hours so I can make it to work. But I couldn't tell you how many times that I got locked out of it because I would blow and it would still pop positive. So
it
that
is.
didn't stop me. I just paid the fees to unlock it and just kept going.
Wow. So like how so once you decided to go to treatment, so it sounds like you went pretty willingly. Did you have your family arrange it or did you start making the phone calls and like what was that like?
So because it was literally a few hours after I got dropped off, I was still kind of feeling a little shit and I was all scratched up and I was just a hot mess and I couldn't stop crying either. My parents did the calling, but they looked for whoever took my insurance and they called two different places. One of them didn't have a bed available and the other one did, which was Eagleville, and I wound up going to Eagleville that morning.
Okay. And then when you got in there, were you apprehensive to be there like, oh, I'm gonna leave at any moment, or did you start to embrace it pretty fast and like really put yourself and dedicate yourself to it?
I definitely wasn't trying to leave. If anything, actually, my mantra was first time, last time.
Yeah.
And I was telling people that too. Like, they're like, you gonna come back? I was like, fuck no, no, I'm not.
I agree with that too. I hear so many stories about people going in 5, 6, 10 times, and I'm just like, if I'm committing myself to a place for 45 whole days or whatever length, I'm like, it better be my only time, or else I give up on myself. So yeah,
Yeah. I actually
I
wound up kept getting extensions on my time because I didn't want to leave. I wanted to, they were like, we'll keep it extending it as long as your insurance will cover it. And I'm like, okay, keep adding on
keep
those
it bringing
days
it.
because
Yeah,
I want to make sure that I don't want to come back here. And, rehabs are really good for doing that sometimes.
Yeah.
It'll get under your skin sometimes, but I never
Yeah.
tried to or wanted to leave like that on
Yeah,
my.
same here. It's like I think I didn't like the structure at first, where it's like it was the lack of structure I had in my regular life that probably led me to drinking all the time. So it was hard for me at first, but I was like, you know what? I need this structure. I need to wake up at the same time and go to these classes and talk about the things I've been avoiding and all that stuff. So I started to love being in treatment, and I was going to stay 60 days, but somehow they let me out in 45. But it was still one of the best decisions I ever made, though. So what was
I agree.
some of the difficult things when you got to treatment that you had to address that were, from the past, because they make you talk about things that probably led to using. What were some of the things that you addressed right away that are helping you these days?
I mean, I would say it's mostly the emotional, physical, mental, verbal abuse that I've taken over my life. It started with my mom. When you're raised in an environment like that, you wind up believing that that's what you deserve, that that's what's okay to tolerate. And so that traveled over into my relationships, including the one with my daughter's father and my most recent ex. And so it was really common for there to be physical violence, lots of fights, stuff like that. And it just, became the norm. And I think a lot of anger and sadness and all that kind of stuff that went with it just kind of really kept me in that spot, that headspace. And I still, to be honest, I still have to address a lot of it because there's times where a certain topic or something comes up and it's like immediately I'm like transported to, trauma town. you know
Yeah.
and I just have flashbacks and I just get right back in the feelings and all that stuff. So I definitely have a lot of work to still do when it comes to healing those things because really, 30, 60, 90 days, whatever, that's not enough time to undo any of that trauma for real because, we're talking decades at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
And so there's still, it helped me recognize what was really bothering me, but wasn't really able to, it was more like a group environment, like a lot group work and stuff like that. It wasn't a whole lot of like individual therapy or anything like that, which I think would actually be more beneficial for people in rehabs and recovery because that way you can talk deep down about the stuff that really bothers you because sometimes even in the group settings they censor what you can talk about, so that's not really helpful either. If you're
Yeah.
talking about a traumatic event, you have to in order to get it out. So I don't know. I think it definitely needs to be more individual therapy to help dig deeper into that.
Yeah. And what are some things you're like learning about yourself now that you're almost 6 months sober? Like now that you have the clarity and all that, I mean, what are you learning about yourself and like what you want for yourself in the future and stuff?
Um, well, I'm learning first that I can survive without drinking. I can survive without doing drugs. Not every day is a battle. Not every day is a fight. And taking yourself out of those environments too, I think really contributes to that as well. Because if I was trying to maintain my sobriety and still be in the relationship that I was in, that wouldn't have happened. It
Yeah.
never would have happened. Because that kind of stuff just it triggers you and makes you want to go straight back to using because you don't have the tools to take care of it on your own.
So
So let's
true.
get back in the bottle and that'll fix it, at least surface level fix it, instead of actually dealing with it. So now I'm realizing also that I can be independent because, you don't want to be alone when you have that much pain and hurt inside. You don't want to be alone because then you just have to sit there and feel it all the time.
Which makes you want to drink, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So once you can start realizing you can rely on other people, you can ask for help. There's a whole community of recovery out there that you can rely on, like in sobriety. So it's really cool. So I noticed you have a TikTok. It's called Savage Sobriety.
Mhm.
And is that like a platform that you're using to kind of talk sobriety and your recovery with people and open up about your story?
The opening up about my story I have to do more of. I've been more like offering support for people, encouragement, stuff like that, relatable topics and whatnot. But I think now that I'm getting more used to actually talking about my story, that I might actually start doing that now because when you're not used to telling other people about it, you're like, I'm just gonna blabber on and I'm just gonna say a bunch of nonsense. Like, how am I gonna organize all this bullshit into like, an hour? And you're just like, nervous wreck about it. But I'm definitely gonna be doing this from now on, thanks to you.
Awesome. No, you're doing a great job of being transparent and vulnerable on this podcast. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does it feel good kind of opening up about stuff? Like you feel like kind of a sense of relief just kind of getting stuff out there?
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a problem putting myself out there. People can think whatever they want. I don't give a fuck, you know?
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, I am
Yeah.
who I am. I've done what I've done, and I can't change that.
Yeah, no, I remember going through your videos because it's not often do I directly reach out to people to be on the show. And I just kind of was scrolling through and I was like, oh, this girl's really kind of got some edge to her. She's kind of entertaining and seems like she's having fun in sobriety. And then it's always good to kind of see that, because like the stuff you were posting was pretty entertaining to say the least in a good way. And it was also a lot of it recovery based. So that was cool.
Thank you.
It's good to
I'm
have
trying.
personality, because recovery doesn't have to be boring and serious all the time. It's supposed to be lighthearted too. So it's good.
Yeah.
So you're in sounds like you're in a sober house now. Are you pretty embraced to like AA and stuff like that? Or you guys just do classes throughout the day, or how's that going?
No classes, but we do have to do meetings. I'm still on blackout, but I get out on Friday. I get off on Friday if I can lock in a home group and a commitment. Those are the last two things I have to have. In order to get off blackout, you have to have a job, which I already had when I came in. So that's, the hardest part. I got that out of the way. I got a sponsor, which reminds me I have to message her today because the past 2 days have been hectic and I haven't messaged her, but I have a sponsor. So now I just have to get a home group and a commitment, and then I'll be, kind of locked in.
Awesome. So are you noticing in the last 5.5, 6 months, your relationships get better? Like, how's your going as a parent? Is parenting becoming easier, even though you're in a sober house and all of that? Your relationship with your daughter and your mom, anything improving on that end?
So with my daughter, she lives with her dad. She has been for the past like 2 years. I had her most of her life until she was 10. He was off doing whatever the hell he was doing when I kicked him out. But at one point I wound up, not being in the right living situation where I could bring her with me because my mom decided, we were staying with my mom and she decided to tell me that, I can't come home and get my daughter. She would call the cops on me and all this other stuff. That's another story. So I wound up having to move out basically, and my daughter was still there with her. But eventually, like a few months later, her father was like, I have my place. Everything's good. I got a job. And my mom was not taking very good care of her. So I was like, I asked my daughter, do you want to go with your dad? And she said, yeah. And, and I wasn't surprised because, like I said earlier, I was on the same tip as her, like he could have seen her whenever he wanted. He just chose not to. So she wanted to go be with her dad. So since he was in the situation where he could take care of her and she actually wanted to go, I couldn't really say no, in a sense, because I know what it is like to be without my dad. And the last thing I need is another me running around in the world back when I was, fucked up anyways. So I was like, this probably be good for her to go with her dad, and it's actually been really good for her. She's doing honors classes and she's loving school and she's happy and healthy every time I talk to her. She's she doesn't have anything to complain about, and she always got a smile on her face. So if she's okay, I'm okay. That's the important part to me anyways. And
I'm
we
sure
talk.
she's
So
really proud of her mom for working on herself. I'm sure she's aware of the situation and just really happy that when you're out of there that you're going to be fully present for her and everything.
yeah, when I was in rehab, when I went initially, I didn't tell her where I went. But at some point, I wound up deciding to tell her that, because they made it seem like, well, okay, my parents that I was staying with, they were going on a vacation and they were bringing her with. But I wasn't going because I was in rehab. And I didn't want her to think that I like didn't want to go to be around her or anything like that. So I basically was like, mommy's at a special hospital to help her to be a better mom, help her to be a better person. I didn't tell her I was there for alcohol or drugs, none of that. But I basically told her that I was doing what I needed to so that way I could be there for her, like you said. So,
That's great.
I had to tell her eventually. Now she just thinks I'm in a house of roommates because, that would be kind of she's still kind of young, she's 12, so that'd be still kind of hard to explain considering she doesn't know that I went for alcohol and drugs. Like, oh, I'm at a special house for that, but she does know that I'm still like working on myself and stuff. So I think that's important for her to know.
Awesome. It's extremely important, and it's cool that you were very honest with her about it. And she's at the age where it sounds like she can comprehend everything and understand it. So that's good. So what are your kind of goals once you get out of the sober house, like career wise? Do you plan on doing anything recovery related as a career, or what's your plan?
So, well, right now I'm just a receptionist at a chiropractic slash spa facility, and I'm gonna start doing services on the spa side. So I'm gonna get more into that, but it's like a lot. It's very deep into detox services, like mud baths, foot spas, anything to detox the body. And I don't know, I had this kind of like revelation a few months ago. I was in IOP and I was thinking, I was like, the gut and brain connection. And what if we healed and repaired the gut in people in addiction, would that help them with their addiction?
Yeah,
Dealing with it, coping with it more kind of thing. So I feel like that would be something like interesting to get deeper into, like and like kind of bring that into the recovery community because the drugs and alcohol really fuck up your digestive tract, along with everything else in your body. And that's part of the they say, your emotions are deeply tied into your digestive tract and stuff. So like if we could repair it, maybe dealing with our addiction wouldn't be so hard. You know what I'm saying?
exactly. That's really well said. That sounds so. What? Couple closing questions. What would you tell your past self if you had to look at yourself right now, like 6 months ago when you kind of hit that rock bottom? What would you say to yourself? And then where are you at? Say now, what's your 24 hours like?
So the first thing I would tell myself would be that I deserve to be happy and I deserve to have peace in my life. I don't deserve to be in chaos and misery and walking on eggshells all the time and putting everybody else first before myself because I would do that as well. Because that's what wound up getting me where I was at. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking care of my mental health or anything like that. So, you just wind up suppressing it and then that's when you get all that deep shit inside that you try to drown, you
Yeah,
know? And what
exactly.
was the other question?
Actually, well, what advice would you give to anybody who's sober curious listening right now, or somebody new in recovery or considering getting sober? What advice would you give based on your experience?
Don't wait for rock bottom. If you think that it's a problem, attack it now. You
I
know,
like that.
and you'll know if you're running into with cops or you're blacking out on people's lawns or like hiding bottles or stuff like that, doing hard drugs, anything like that. just try to avoid getting yourself in that hole if you realize it's a problem already.
Yeah, just address it before it actually snowballs into something worse.
Mhm.
Exactly. That's
Exactly.
great advice. Great advice. And then, yeah, that other question I asked was kind of like, are you happy now in life? You starting to feel like you're seeing everything clearly? And like, what's 24 hours in a day look like for you now going forward?
Oh, I actually get up early in the morning now, which is weird. That's something I would normally I'd be awake all night and drinking all night and I'd already be awake, but I actually sleep now. Medications I think are very important as well if you need them.
Not drinking on them too.
Yes, of course, of course.
I always tell myself no meds ever worked for me, and I would always complain. But I'm like, I look back, I'm like, I was drinking on every medication anybody ever tried. So it's like, how did I even give it a chance? Now it's like,
Yeah.
oh, the meds are working. Sweet, I'm happy.
Mhm. Yeah, that's something else I realized too is that I'm actually not a miserable person. Like I
Same,
used
yeah,
to think and people used to tell me all the time that I'm, mean, hateful bitch and all this other stuff and I realized that I'm actually like not that miserable,
yeah,
and I actually do enjoy some things in life and I don't mind being around other people and, all that kind of stuff.
yeah. Recovery brings out just this positive, happy version of ourselves that we never knew existed. Like, I mean, I always thought when I got sober, I was scared to get sober because I thought that I was going to be as miserable as I was before I started using. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, actually, no, I was in a lot of pain. I just never addressed that pain before I started using. And now that I got sober and addressed all those things, I'm like, wow, I'm actually not so negative of a person anymore. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I actually
Exactly.
smile naturally now. Yeah. And I'm
At
not an
first, it
asshole.
can be really hard though.
Yeah,
Like when you're
it's
first new in it, you're like, because all you're still thinking about is wanting to use and stuff like that. So getting past that hump of not thinking about it all day or every day or whatever, that can be really hard getting through that part. But I
so
think
true.
once you get past that, that's when you can really start like embracing what life has to offer.
So true. Well said. Awesome. Well, one more random question. If your rock bottom had a theme song, what do you think it would be?
Ooh,
Just to throw out a
there's so many
goofy question.
songs.
I know.
Um, Highway to Hell, probably.
Highway to Hell. That's a good answer. All right. I've been asking that question lately and getting yesterday my co-host said "Nuck if you buck," the rap
Oh,
song.
yeah,
So I
that's
was
a
just
really
like,
good one.
yeah, that's good. I
Yep,
said I said let the bodies hit the floor.
that's another good one. Yep.
Yeah, so good answers. No, I really appreciate you being on and being vulnerable and opening up on my show. And like I said, I don't reach out to people too often. So I know that, something about your page struck me. So if people can reach you, do you want to throw out your TikTok name on here? Just
Yeah, it's, Savage Sobriety.
Savage Sobriety. All right. That's an awesome name. I'm surprised that one wasn't taken a long time ago.
No, me too, but I don't know, it had a little something to it.
Yeah, I like it. It describes you well. You're handling recovery in a savage way. So
Thank you,
it's
thank
good.
you. I'm trying to help others do that too, so
It's
hopefully,
awesome.
it works.
Well, really proud of you. Really, respect your attitude and the way you're facing everything, and it takes a lot of strength. So, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing on my show, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great experience, and you actually helped keep me real calm. I thought it was gonna be all nerves, but it was really good chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.